Hello and welcome to Voodoo Lounge once again. We're very happy to have with us today Cindy Wonderful,
Hello.
who is not only an artist, a DJ, a radio personality, an entrepreneur, but my niece.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to be here with James Slaughter, the one and only.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank you so much for showing up today. Really excited to have Cindy with us. Cindy has been a part of the music scene here in Baton Rouge since she moved back. Uh, uh, how many years ago now?
It's been like 10 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were, when you first moved back, were living, for those who don't know, would be my mother in law, Goldie's house, but we all call her affectionately Mimi's house.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I was living at Mimi's house, and then I moved to North Baton Rouge. I bought a house in North Baton Rouge on Iroquois and 39th, and I used to do art shows, movie screenings, performances, video shoots. It was called Shea Fab. And whoa, echo! I hear my voice. So that was kind of my first connection to the music scene here. As far as contributing to it, of course, I might have popped into an event here or there to see my Uncle James performing with his band, or different incarnations of his mini bands.
Several, yes.
Yeah.
Why don't you give our listeners and viewers here a little bit of an overview? Where are you originally from, and how one of your earliest music memories?
Oh, my earliest music memories, my sister and my aunt, Tanya Ruffin, who's behind the camera today. Woohoo! And Tanya was a big Stevie Nicks fan, so there was a lot of Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks influence, the band Berlin, let's see, who else? Culture Club, Rick Springfield, Cyndi Lauper. I listened to a lot of what my sister and my aunt listened to. So those were sort of my earliest memories of, being excited about music. And, I've always loved all kinds. From there, I just really got into going to thrift stores and shopping for vinyl records. And just sometimes I'd like the cover and just see what was on it. And I love all things like Carole King, James Taylor, Bread, stuff like that. I like that. And then later I got into Faith No More and Pearl Jam and gangster rap, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre. And I've always had a really wide influence for music.
I think that's kind of cuts across the board for people who are involved in the music industry. They listen to a lot of different things. Even though they may focus what they're writing or what they're doing in one genre, they still let all of these other things affect them.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot with you. Why don't you give us a little rundown on one of the on some of the bands that led you up to the big band, which for me was Screen Club.
Yeah.
So why don't you let some of our viewers know about that? And you also told us one about DOD when you were in school.
Okay. My very first band was called DOD. I thought it was really cool. I used to spell the name out in like bone font. And we were called Delinquents of Disaster. When I was in about 7th grade, I played the drums, and I had long bangs, and like my hair was kind of spiky on the side. And we played our school's talent show, and I think we were in like 7th or 8th grade, and it was an instrumental song. It was called Trip of the Weary Traveler, if I recall. And, at the time we thought it was like Stairway to Heaven, but it was, that was probably a very generous, interpretation of what we were actually doing. But yeah, we were then affectionately known by our school cohorts as dorks on drugs. Yeah, so not exactly the reception I wanted, but I didn't give up. I played in the next serious band from there was called S 7. It was called Pebble, meaning we were a small rock group. And I thought that was clever, but we changed our name to S 7 at some point. And it was actually in that band. That's the first band I was in where the singer really wanted to be a rock star for real. And, I'd never known anyone brave enough to admit that to themselves, and I thought that was cool. And this was a long time ago, so we were actually going to my parents' house to design the tape cover because we were putting out an audio tape, and we were designing it on Corel Draw, but not everyone had computers back then, so we had to go across town to my parents' house. And the singer guitarist guy, he wanted his name to be credited as Jonas F. And the bass player, Amy, she thought that was the dumbest name she ever heard. So she was like, if you're Jonas F, I'm Amy Fantastic, and that's Cindy Wonderful. And she thought that was, it was just something playful. And as a side project, I was doing this thing called Shitbox. And it was just me on my karaoke machine overdubbing and making loops out of my karaoke machine. I'd take one tape out and put it in the other, record over it, and go back and forth. And we lived at a place like a warehouse, and different bands would practice there. So I always had all these different types of musicians around. Mm-hmm. And I'd do these recordings, and I sent the demo to the paper, to the cool paper at the time, the Westward, and got a huge write-up for Shitbox, which was our little side project that was fun. And it kind of caught on, and that's when people started really knowing me as Cindy Wonderful. And they'd always ask me, is that your real name? And I just thought, what do you think? Is that my real name? In my mind, well, that'd be cool if that was my real name. So then I kind of looked into it, and it was a $44 filing fee, and you had to list it in the newspaper, and that was $21. So I'm like, well, let me change it. And so now, since I was 20 or so, it's been on my passport, ID, credit cards, and it's my real name now. And it's,
That's right.
Yeah.
Cindy Wonderful.
Well, I'm gay, if you couldn't guess by looking at me. So I figured if I was going to get married to a man, my last name would have changed. So I was like, this is kind of me marrying my musical aspirations.
Just taking control of yourself and everything.
Yeah. Just, trying to have that dream and hold on with both hands and just go for it.
Why don't we go into Scream Club now? Because okay. I know you were out of the country for a while with Scream Club.
Yeah, so Scream Club was my most successful project to date. Well, they're all successful in different ways. Before Scream Club was Rainbow Sugar, which was a 3-piece, for the most part, sometimes we were 4, girl group, and it was punk rock, hip hop. I wish I could sing. I would love to sing, but I can't carry a tune. So I rapped, and it was great, and it was just a very powerful, great experience. And when that kind of fizzled out, I moved to Olympia, Washington, and that's when I met my bandmate Sarah Adorable. Mm-hmm. And I went to go get, to apply for a job somewhere, and she was working behind the counter. And at the time, in Denver, you just had to think about getting a job and you could get a job. But in Olympia, it was like you had to have a resume just to wash dishes somewhere. And that was just crazy to me. It was a culture shock. And So I asked her, I was thinking I could get an application, and I was like, oh, can I get an application? She was like, no, we don't have applications. I was like, well, how do you how do you get a job here? And she's like, well, you have to bring in a resume, or you have to be friends with somebody here. And I was like, well, hey, I'm Cindy. Like, what's your name? And then we became friends and girlfriends, and then we formed Scream Club about 6 months later, and about 6 months after that, we had a small record deal, and we toured all over America, Scandinavia, Europe, UK, and then I, enjoyed touring in Europe so much that eventually I moved there,
Mm-hmm.
and
In Germany, correct?
yes, I was in Berlin, Germany for 4 years, and it was terrific. And my best friend Sarah Dorval is still there,
Mm-hmm.
and
Hello to Sarah.
yes, hi Sarah. Yeah.
Now, there was also something that I thought was pretty big and pretty significant, that one of your songs was included on a TV show that was hugely popular in the 90s, which is a show called Nip Tuck.
Oh yeah. Well, that was in the 2000s.
2000,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Nip Tuck. And they played a little music video clip for our video for it, which was this animated video with bugs. Shout out to Giles Odell who did that.
And what was the name of the song for that video?
It was called If You Want It, and it guest starred Beth Ditto from The Gossip. For anybody who knows about The Gossip, they're an amazing band. She sang the hook, and it was it was cool to have our, and more recently, actually, this year, Scream Club was in I think it was a series called Pride on FX, and we were in a series called Pride at FX, which chronicled queer and gay history, and we were in the background of that, so that was kind of cool.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's pretty huge.
Yeah, and now I never heard our song in the movie, but Rainbow Sugar, this is the band pre-Scream Club. I don't think our song is actually in the movie, but we are credited in the credits of Toxic Avenger 3 from Trauma.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
unless it's in there and I missed it, because we used to be very wild girls, Rainbow Sugar, and one day I think we covered ourselves in mud and walked naked through the Trauma studios and kind of invaded their office, and Lloyd Kaufman, who's the owner of Trauma, he was there, and he kind of was like, wow, you wild girls, and Trauma's kind of wild, and
they're fixing to do a reboot on the whole Toxic Avenger thing.
really,
And I know quite a few of the heavier groups and the heavy metal guys
yeah,
were real big into that movie.
Yeah.
It was I guess because it was such a weird
yeah,
kind of scene, how this little nerdy guy becomes the Toxic Avenger.
yeah, and Trauma, I think, as a film company, it's kind of like, I don't think they pay very much, but like if you want to intern for Trauma, or if you want to, there's an opportunity if you kind of want to work yourself in somewhere.
Yes.
You can get in where you fit in with Trauma. So it's like been kind of a beautiful home to like freaks and weirdos for, I don't know, for decades now.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I remember watching the first Toxic Avenger, renting it on TV and watching it
Yeah.
through the cable network, and it was pretty wild back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on a little bit. And with you, there's quite a bit of ground to cover, because most of the people that we talk to here are musicians, and you are a musician, but you have bigger and other things that are going on with this. You're also a radio personality here in town, and you have your own show,
Yeah.
which is a show dedicated to local music here in Baton Rouge.
Yes.
So let's get started on that. Let's move on to that.
Okay. So every Thursday from 7 to 7:30 p.m. on 96.9 FM. That's WHYR Baton Rouge Community Radio. It's a weekly exploration and celebration of the music and the people and the goings on in Baton Rouge. And I really play a wide variety of music. I've played your band a few times. I play hip hop. I play shoegaze. I play electronic music. I really play. I stay away from stuff like if it doesn't have a good vibe. I don't like to talk. I don't play sexist music or homophobic or gratuitously violent music. Yeah. But if it's positive, and I like good stories. If there's violence in it, but it's a good story arc, I'll play that. Because I like to stay connected to creative people in the community. I like to know, it's fun to find out. It's fun. I like creative people, and then to get to hear, oh, that's what they do, and then to have a place to put it or to showcase it. I love playing people for the first time on the radio because it's a thrill, for me it is. I remember the first time I got played on the radio, and my band was all sitting in the car together, waiting, and then to hear us, and they didn't say our name, but we got to hear our music on the radio, and it wasn't life-changing, but it was a very cool moment, and I really hope to provide those moments for people.
It's a very, very big moment to get to hear on the radio something that you're involved with that you did yourself.
Yeah.
And it's huge. And like you said, even if they didn't say the name of the band or who the artist was, it was there and it was played, and you were able to hear it and call all your friends and say, oh my gosh, well, we just heard our music on the radio.
Yeah. But I do try to always say the names of the bands because I know what it's like to be the musician getting played on the radio. You want that to hear your own voice. The sound of your own band name is such a nice thing. So I do always try. If I don't do it while you're playing, I'll do it after the next song, but I try to say every band name.
Well, I know one in particular that you were fond of was a band called Hickory.
A band named Hickory, yes. Yes, I really I like that band.
And Tanya and I got to hear them at Chiba Hut one day. They were playing outside.
Oh, cool.
And they're fantastic. They're really good.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed them.
Love them. Love those guys. And, gosh, there's so many great local musicians. It's remarkable to me, and that's part of why I wanted to do my radio show, because it's so easy to tell yourself, oh, somewhere else is better, the grass is greener in New Orleans or Lafayette or New York or Berlin or wherever, but I really believe that if you look hard enough or just open yourself up to it, you can find amazing things wherever you are. And I'm here, so I am all about, seeking out those local talented musicians.
And how can these local people get in touch with you?
You can find me at Facebook or Instagram /Baton Rouge Locals Only. You can send me your links to SoundCloud, Bandcamp, YouTube. I prefer getting a link before sending me an email, because my Gmail is pretty full right now. And so send me a link, I can check it out, and then chances are, if you're nice, if your music isn't putting my gender down or me, chances are there's a pretty good chance that at some point I will put you on the radio. It may take a while for me to find the episode that's right for you, but chances are I can make it happen for you, so.
Dynamite.
Yeah.
I know that Jay and I are going to be talking to you in the not too distant future about putting some original stuff from the band Windows on there.
Oh, I would love to. That's with you in it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. I played some J. Michael before in the past, and I would love to hear some recordings with you on it for
That'd
sure.
be fantastic.
And I'd still love to play the other album that you were involved with.
Oh, that was the last recording that I did with my friend Joe Tolis. Joe unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago from pancreatic cancer. Joe and I had known each other since the 80s.
Wow.
We'd played together and we'd recorded together several times. Big Sun being the one that I recorded the most songs with him on prior to this album, which is called Vessels, which you can find on Apple Music. You can find it there. And I believe I'm on 4 or 5 of the songs there. And it's a bunch of different people. It's a bunch of his friends that he grew up with and that we all know growing up as musicians. So it's a lot of people from the New Orleans and LaPlace area here locally.
Mm-hmm.
And as he got older, and him and his wife Andrea moved, and he became friends with a lot of different people, and I guess most notably some of the guys from Score Nut Zippers.
Oh wow!
Which is I met the bassist from them, Stu Cole. Stu, if you're listening, shout out to Stu Cole, a dynamite guy, and he was there when I was there recording the songs. The last time that we were able to be there with Joe, so that was a pretty big thing for us to be able to do that.
I would love to play some of that music because I just think that's such a special thing that you were able to do, before he passed.
He was, I will say this, Joe was always Joe. And he knew that he was very sick, and he had a couple of moments there, and he said, guys, I need to take a break, and I need to just back off. The funniest thing, I think, was we were sitting outside, and I wanted to have a drink and a cigar, and Joe says, come on, I'm going to have a cigarette. And we sat down, and he had a smoke, and he says, can you believe my doctor is getting on me about a cigarette? Because I think the issue is a little bit bigger than whether I have a cigarette right now or not. But he never lost his sense of humor or his compassion for everybody that he worked with, and that was huge. That was
cool.
Very good. All right. What about what is some of the stuff that you're listening to right now? What are some new things that you like?
Oh, I am very into the new Nikki Click album. If you guys don't know about her, check her out at nikkiclick.art. She's amazing. That music just makes me happy. I can dance around. And I actually started doing music. I took a long break from doing music, and I just did my first remix in about 10 years. And it's a Nikki Click remix for Teenage Lifestyle, coming out on Disk Drive Records. So shout out to Disk Drive, Nikki Click. And it was wonderful. And it's so fun because I hadn't been doing music, and like I just know that makes a part of me so happy, and to be doing a remix and dancing around my room and jazzed about it, it's like that can't be understated, how impactful, doing what you love is.
It makes you feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when everything comes together and you hear it and you're like, wow, that's fantastic. I love it. That's exactly what we need to be doing.
Yeah. It feels good. It feels great. So I'm listening to her. I'm listening to a lot of I've been working on doing affirmations, like dance meditation affirmations. So I've been listening to that because that's what I'm making now. And I'm going to organize a date soon where, I'll invite the public to come, and it's going to be like a dance club sort of night at Unity Baton Rouge. That's unitybatonrouge.com. It's going to be like a nightclub, but it's going to be all affirmations. It's going to be like it's going to be cool. And
All-
that's what I'm into right now.
All very positive stuff. All
Yeah. It's because I need to wash my mind, I need to wash my brain and reprogram it because I have very lofty, big ambitions. And, if you're thinking negative, putting roadblocks in front of your own success, it's like you never allow yourself to get to the goal. You just throw in every obstacle. That's what negative thoughts do. And so I think it's a good idea. I know it's a good idea for me. I think it's a good idea for everybody to, to try to handle those negative thoughts. And you might not be able to lose them completely because you're human. But one thing that I read, a little piece of advice that always stuck with me is you might not be able to lose them completely, but you can lose them in a crowd. So what I'm doing right now is trying to crowd out those negative thoughts with positive thoughts. And but I wanted to make it cool because a lot of religious music doesn't speak to me, so I wanted to make it kind of fun and cool.
Yeah, have your own thing, and it's very easy to get caught up in a negative thought. The easiest thing to do in life is to say no.
Yeah.
That's easy. No.
Yeah.
But to say yes and to open up to something is a good bit more difficult.
Yeah.
It's more rewarding. It's hard to see sometimes because a good bit of us walk around with blinders on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not anything that we consciously do. It just happens because things in life happen to you, and you're in a foul mood, and
Yeah.
and you just go, I'm not going to deal with that right now. Just forget that, and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But if you can say, okay, I'm going to say yes to this, and I'm going to do this, and the blinders kind of come away, and your train of thought does change a little bit. Even like you said, even though the negative is still there,
Yeah.
you can kind of
It doesn't
push it to the side.
It's like, yeah, it's okay, but it can take a back seat. Yeah. And also I think that doing this music again is really helping because it's like if you're focused on your what's making you really happy, that's something that people feel on you, and that attracts opportunities. You may not even know where they're going to come from.
Yeah.
But if you're jazzed or happy about something, that kind of sets a tone that you carry throughout your day. And so I'm excited to see where this is all going.
All right.
Yeah.
What about some of the tools that you're using to create music? I know some people, most of the older cats, like myself included, are analog guys. We're in it, and it's harder for us to come through into digital stuff and to understand it.
Mm.
You, as a younger person, most of your stuff is created digitally. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I just made this last remix entirely with, it's called DJ from Algorithm. And basically, I used to use a program called Acid where I could, it's a digital workstation and it's linear. So, I could move things around and try different things and, record it. But I always worked with loops, even when I was using that. I would record into it and then make loops out of it and then line them up there. But with this analog DJ equipment, I can trigger the loops myself. It's got loop banks, and you can get loop banks from some come with it and some you can download, and you can also program your own loops into it and your own samples into it. And so I made the entire Nikki Click remix just using that. And so I basically played it like an instrument. I had to learn all the parts and where the changes were and play it all live, all the music part live. And then but it keeps it in sequence. So it keeps it in sequence. I mean, you can't miss your window, but if you get it in the window, it'll keep the loops on time with each other. So I did that, and then I went back and did the vocals, but I chopped up the vocals, and so they're all on different triggers, and then I triggered them live, and then I could trigger the effects too, different effects at different times. And yeah, DJ is great. Oh, and I just remember bands that I'm listening to, or some of the bands that I'm listening to. Speaking of analog, there's a guy in town called Cohen Hartman. Have you ever heard of him?
I have not.
Oh gosh, I think he'd be a great guest because he works with a lot of different pedals, and he makes songs. He makes songs out of all these. He basically reviews pedals, and he'll play stuff, and he'll make little songs. Some of them are only like 30 seconds long, but it'll be, it's a cool way to discover what a pedal does through these songs. It's better than just like a regular demo, because he really takes his to new heights, and I'm really a fan of his music. And it's like, I don't know if he's strictly analog, but he works with a lot of analog. And I mean, he's got an impressive collection of, I can only imagine what his music space looks like. So I like him. There's another guy, Damien Vessel. He's a producer. I like Absentee, I think is amazing. And these are all local people. Absentee, let's see, who else is really blowing my mind lately? Cayuga Heights. They're like an instrumental band that's a little groovy. And yeah. But I like analog stuff too. I started out a drummer, so what I like about this new DJ equipment, it's like it's still very live. It's not just programmed. Because before, when I would make it, I do part of it live, the loops, but then it was all just computer work from then on out. But this way is like, oh shoot, I have to do it, and if I mess it up, I got to start way back at the beginning of the song, and it kind of gives it more of a fresh feeling for me.
Well, it gives it, for lack of a better term, a very human feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be reflected in whatever format that you're using. And I do remember a quote from Jack Bruce of Cream, and he said to take the human part out of music, you just turn it into a monster. You turn it into something that it was never intended to be.
Yeah.
And I like and have grown up listening to things that had mistakes in them.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear the mistake, and when you hear somebody play it live, if they don't do the mistake, you go, well, they just messed up.
Yeah.
I remember The Doors being one, Love Me Two Times, and there's a guitar lick that Robbie Krieger plays on his Gibson. Well, his tailpiece was not tunable. So when he played the lick on the G or the D string, it was wildly out of tune. And if you hear somebody play it live and it's in tune, it's horrible, because you want to hear that horribly wrong note on it.
Yeah.
And I think whatever it is, sometimes that you need to leave a little bit of that in there to keep it human.
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever format that it's doing, I think it makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love electronic music and sequenced music, and I still feel like there is a human element that can be translated, even if like that's the way you have to operate it. Because I like a lot of electronic music,
and you can hear it and feel it too, even though it's electronic.
Yeah.
You can hear something that a computer generates.
Yeah.
For a little, 4 or 8 or 12 bars, and you can hear what somebody else does.
Yeah.
And you get a feeling for it.
Yeah.
At least I do. I don't know. That's old timers talking about it.
Well, I think I forget what the guy's name is from Yaz. He said something like similar to that. Like there was a lot of electronic music, but it didn't really have that. I don't know. It didn't have that human feel, and that's why he got Alison. What? How do you say Moyer? That's why he got her because she was so soulful, and at that time that sort of soul hadn't been done, at least on that scale, to that kind of music, and I think those two together sound so cool. I mean, even though the music's totally, sequenced and digital, her voice on top of it, it really kind of it brings out the human elements and the the process of music, and then that having that perfect timing just sounds so cool in the clubs, and I love combining the elements together like that.
And I haven't seen too many people that do it live that maybe have. Now I know that you guys did it at Screen Club, correct? Because you had your music on your laptop. Is that?
Yeah, we did.
But around here, I haven't seen too much of that.
Oh, it's here. Like a lot of the young people, they'll just play from their phones. But I feel like when Screen Club was doing it, it was still a little interesting to, but now it's like not that interesting to see somebody behind a keyboard. You have to bring it more to life, and we got into like adding more live elements afterwards, but we did plenty of shows that were more or less karaoke style.
Yeah.
But try to make up, if you're going to be like that, we try to engage in a way with our audience directly in a, not to make it seem so, prescribed, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, just like karaoke, because that's basically what we were doing. So we're like, okay, well, we got to have these larger than let's have a little choreography. Let's have some wild clothes. Let's interact a lot. Let's find ways to keep it alive. It may not be our instruments that we're playing, but maybe it's the energy of the crowd, or maybe it's the connecting with people or something.
Well, that's it's very interesting when you're talking about choreography and clothes and everything. And I've always said, as a musician, most people not only listen with their ears, but they listen with their eyes too.
Yeah.
And when they go to something live, they are there to be entertaining, and you're kind of involving all the senses.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty important to do that, to dress a certain way, to present yourself a certain way. And I'm just convinced that the listeners appreciate that even more.
I think so. I mean, I definitely think so. And it's also going to be different for each band. Some like Scream Club kind of had a wild, bright. Well, we went through a lot of different aesthetics, but like some people, you might just look cool for I know you dress. You step it up on. You're pretty stylish when you go play, and you got your rings, and but also I think there are some bands that I've seen that look. Some bands look like they just rolled out of bed, and that's not very interesting for the most part. But every once in a while, I feel like you need those bands if they're really good bands. Now, if they're mediocre, you can't get away with that. But if you're a great band, I feel like sometimes the audiences want to see somebody that looks like them, but you kind of got to be a great band to do that.
I think.
Then it's like, it makes them feel like, I could do that too, or something.
Exactly. I think Nirvana was a good example of that.
Yeah.
And having seen them go through their rise and everything, and seeing, like you said, the aesthetic that they have was like they're just It looked like somebody picked these people out of the crowd and put them up on stage
Yeah.
and said, "Okay, you guys start playing."
Yeah.
I will say this: after that, seeing Dave Grohl land on his feet running
Yeah.
and take a little turn from it and
Yeah.
go in this little direction. Chris Novoselic, the bass player, who's has a couple of different groups now that he's playing with, still up in the Washington area, has kind of taken this turn with it. And they're not the same thing as Nirvana.
Yeah.
They've each taken their turn and gone that way with it.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with you about that. There are some bands that I think the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, but they did look cool. I mean, they didn't just. I mean, their aesthetic was so strong.
Well, and they definitely need to thank Malcolm McLaren for all of that. You know, because that whole thing was started as a fashion thing.
I would love to put a band together, like, you know, like. I mean, I think that's fascinating. I mean, there's so many different kinds of bands and musical expression, and you know, it's kind of funny because like punk rock has gotten this reputation of being like really DIY or really like going against the grain, which it is. It's all of those things, but like, you know, the Sex Pistols were put together. They did have somebody else that put them together, you know, and that's kind of like not really what a lot of punk is
all about.
So
it came from a very different thing, and Malcolm McLaren had a vision. So he was like, he picks these people out and puts them in a certain style of dress that was becoming fashionable.
Yeah.
It didn't hit here until the early 80s, but in the mid to late 70s in England, that was it. That, you know, the safety pins in the shirts and the torn trousers and t-shirts and wearing certain shoes and all that kind of thing.
What was the name of the shop? Was it I forget. Oh, Westwood. It was Westwood's clothes.
Mm.
She was credited with the anarchy symbol. I heard that and I was like, oh, that's, or at least the anarchy symbol as we know it. Not, you know, obviously anarchy existed before her, but like the big
cape with the circle around it.
So, wow, you know, that's cool though. But I mean, I think punk rock was a thing that was happening, but the actual Sex Pistols, like, he was able to spot like, oh, these people would have interest in chemistry.
Yeah. Because if you're talking about punk and how it got started, I always kind of credit either Iggy and the Stooges or the Ramones, because these guys were playing in the mid to late 70s, and nobody. I mean, the Stooges had a pretty big following. The Ramones, it kind of took them a while to really be known as like the godfathers of punk, and their aesthetic was jeans, white T-shirt, and leather overcoats. You know, and that was it. And they come out and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, and we just plow through these 2-minute songs. You know.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's interesting to me is now there are musicians and songwriters that are getting famous for like 20-second songs, 30-second songs from I guess it started with Vine. And it continues with TikTok, and you know, like I think that's mind blowing. You know, like who would have thought that like a little clip could really, you know, make a career for somebody? But there's musicians out there thriving in this new world.
Yeah, this new crazy, like you said, TikTok world. All of a sudden, somebody comes up and they get noticed for being a fantastic vocalist or guitarist or rapping or whatever they do.
And it's funny because one that I was following, like I never even found any full songs, and maybe they couldn't even write full songs, but I'm like, that's interesting, like where maybe you can't write a full song, but you can sing little things. and that's all you need to do, and suddenly that can be your thing.
That could be it.
Why not?
Right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to one of the last things I want to talk about to
Okay.
you is being an entrepreneur, and also with, entrepreneur. My wife just corrected me. Um, with Shea Fab and the events that you have there here in town.
Okay. Well, Shea Fab, it started in North Baton Rouge. The first house I bought, I moved here straight from Berlin. I had no money really. I had $1,000, and as soon as I got here, I accidentally spilt water in my girlfriend's computer, so that $1,000 went straight to the geek squad because her whole life was in that computer. So fortunately, my wonderful grandmother Mimi helped me and let me live there, didn't charge me rent, and I just got a job. I got several jobs, but I was like delivering pizza at night, and I just kind of I'd always heard about like tax sales, or I always kind of knew I wanted to get into real estate, but I didn't know how. But I'd heard of these concepts like no money down or buying a house for $1, and so I just started like researching that, and kind of got to know the process. And I bought my first house it was a $500 filing fee and a $500 bid. No one bid against me, and it was a dump, and I just fixed it up incrementally. And that was called Shea Fab because I had an art gallery in Berlin, and it was called the Fab Lab. So this was kind of like the continuation of that. Shea Fab was like continuing the.
And the original Shea Fab, that was the one that was on Iroquois.
Yeah. And then that kind of turned into a nonprofit, and the mission is to unite and uplift Baton Rouge and beyond through creative expression, community engagement, and neighborhood improvement. And so basically, when I bought that house on Iroquois, it was a dump, and I had to fix it up slowly but surely, and then hosting art shows, hosting performances, film shoots, movie screenings, was a way to get people to think outside. A lot of people tell themselves that there's gatekeepers, and and there is, but there's also like a world outside of those gates. Like if there's somewhere you want to get to and you can't get through the gate, you can make your own paradise. You can make your own event. You don't have to think about, if you can't get somebody to host your art show, a gallery, have it in create your own experiences. Have it in your house. Have it in a public park. Have it in an abandoned building. So just trying to get people to think like they don't have to be conventional, especially if that's not working for them. If they're not getting the results they want, stop asking for, permission and just do it. Build your own following, and then the more conventional places will probably give you more acceptance. And if you're still interested, then you can kind of take that relationship in new directions. But that's the goal of Shea Fab, is to create opportunities for people to to either perform or do art or express themselves, and also kind of lend a helping hand to the community. Currently, right now, every other week with More Baton Rouge, we are feeding people in front of Wonderground. That's 14th and Myrtle Walk. There's a community garden in the back. We got a little dog going, having a little dog fest over here.
Dog fest.
But for anyone who might be wondering what I'm checking out over there. But anyway, it's 14th and Myrtle Walk, and there's a community garden, and it's going to be Baton Rouge's premier off-grid art space and art and performance space, creative space, let's just say.
Yeah.
And it's been a process, and and that's part of why I'm into doing the affirmations and mixes, because it takes a positive mind frame to like stay on track and to stay tapped into that joy and to not get bogged down with any obstacles.
Well, I know that Tanya and I have seen you progress and grow through all of these things, from the original Shea Fab on Iroquois to where it's at now, and the building that was there and what it's turned into now, because there's been a huge transformation
Yeah.
from that site, and you've been able to get some people to help you and to do things there, and it's really has turned around. I originally, when Tanya told me, well, Cindy bought the house on Iroquois, and I thought to myself, she is out of her mind. And you proved me wrong. We went to the first show there,
Yeah.
and you had all of the art inside, and you had music playing, and you had the fire dancers outside.
Yeah.
And Tanya and I have met people that we still know to this day from that first experience.
Oh, cool.
And it's grown into what has become the larger and bigger and better and improved Shea Fab now.
And it's still a process, and I love connecting people. So, that's the goal, and I can't wait to invite you. Maybe I'll have to come back here when I have an event there and invite all of you. And
well, that's the
y'all
big
can
thing.
stay tuned at what I'm doing there at SheaFabBatonRouge.org. Now, I'll spell it out because everybody asked me about this, and no, it's not Cheese Fab, it's Shea Fab. It's French because I'm in Baton Rouge. So it's CHEZFABBATONROUGE.org. So you can see what I'm doing with the space, with the nonprofit, and you can find out about more Baton Rouge and everything else that I got going on.
Also, tell us that you recently, well, not recently, but you have become a notary here in town.
Oh, yes, I'm a notary. Small succession, real estate, paternity affidavits, you name it, I can notarize it. So if you ever have any notary needs, you can call me, 225-508-1911.
Again,
That's 225-508-1911.
I almost felt like Junior Samples. That's BR549. BR549.
Nobody knows that reference.
I know. There's going to be limited people who understand that hee-haw reference right there.
Oh, okay.
Cindy, thank you so much for coming by today.
Thank you for having me.
And sharing your story.
I'm honored.
It's for me, it's a huge story because you came to Baton Rouge, like you said, and you had X amount of dollars in your pocket, and you were able to, through positive thinking and doing these things, to have yourself situated and be comfortable. To be able to have your own space, your own home, your own art space, to do these things for the community, and which is huge. For me, it's huge.
Well, thank you.
I think it's very, very terrific.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be a guest here.
It's always great to have guests here on Voodoo Lounge. Also, don't forget, we have Voodoo Lounge stickers. If you would like to get a free one, please send a self-addressed stamped envelope to 410 Wilts, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70806. It's across the bottom of the ticker there. That's it for tonight. We've had a great time. Thank you so much for showing up. We're going to talk to you later. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And who knows, maybe Cindy will come back and talk to us some more.